Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder if feeling down might actually lead to getting picked on, or if being picked on might make you feel even more down? Well, this new study might have a clue. We all know that adolescence can be a tough time. Emotions can feel really intense, and for girls this period can be especially vulnerable to feeling sad or anxious. We also know that things like being bullied or peer victimization, as scientists call it, and dwelling on negative thoughts or rumination are linked to these feelings. But what is the real connection? Does getting picked on make you ruminate and then feel sad, or does feeling sad lead you to ruminate and then maybe even make you a target for bullies? The experts have been trying to figure out the exact order of these events, and it is more complex than you might think. So what did the study try to do? They wanted to look at how peer victimization, rumination, and dysphoria, which is kind of a general feeling of sadness or discomfort, including symptoms like low mood and hopelessness, affect each other over time. They weren't just looking at one cause and one effect, they were looking for a dynamic backend. Fourth kind of relationship. Imagine it like a dance where each partner influences the other. To do this, they followed a group of 550 teenage girls for 3 years, checking in with them 5 times. This is great because it lets us see how things change over a significant period of time. They asked these girls about their experiences with peer victimization, how much they tended to ruminate, and how much they were feeling dysphoric. Now, the way they analyzed the data is pretty cool and important. They used something called a random intercept cross-legged panel model. Think of it like this. We all have our own baseline or average level of certain traits, like our general happiness or how much we tend to ruminate. That is the between-person part. But we can also have days or weeks where we feel better or worse than our usual self. That is the within-person part. This fancy model helps them untangle these two things. It lets them see if, for example, a girl who was usually more prone to sadness was also more likely to be bullied, or if a girl who had a particularly bad week of feeling sad then experienced more bullying in the following weeks. Even if she wasn't usually a target, doing this helps us understand personal experiences of change, not just group averages. They also made sure to account for the girls getting older during the study. Let's start with the between-person findings. This is like looking at the average person in the group. They found that, across the board, girls who, on average, experienced more peer victimization also tended to have higher average levels of rumination and dysphoria. And those who tended to ruminate more also tended to have higher levels of dysphoria. This makes sense, right? There is a general connection between these 3 things in the population. If you tend to be a more anxious person, you might also tend to be more sensitive to peer interactions and ruminate more. But here is where it gets really interesting. Looking at the within-person changes, how individuals change over time. This is where they found some of the strongest and most surprising results. They discovered that when a girl felt more dysphoric than usual for her, meaning a bad week or a bad spell of feeling down, this actually predicted that she would experience more peer victimization and ruminate more in the following period. So, feeling bad seemed to lead to both being targeted more and dwelling on those feelings more. But, and this is the truly reciprocal part, they also found that experiencing more peer victimization than usual predicted subsequent increases in dysphoria or feeling down. So, it's a two-way street between dysphoria and peer victimization. Feeling blue can lead to being picked on, and being picked on can lead to feeling blue. Now, here is the twist, and it goes against some previous ideas. They found that while rumination was linked to dysphoria, and changes in dysphoria predicted changes in rumination, rumination itself didn't seem to predict future increases in either dysphoria or peer victimization. It is like rumination is more of a consequence in this dynamic, rather than a driver of change for the other two at this within-person level. This is a key finding because some theories suggested rumination was a major cause of these problems. This study suggests, at least at the within-person level, that rumination might be more of a reaction to feeling bad or being victimized, rather than initiating those problems. So, what does this all mean? At the individual level, when a teenage girl's dysphoria increases from her personal average, she is more likely to experience increased peer victimization and rumination later on. And importantly, if she experiences increased peer victimization from her personal average, this also predicts an increase in her dysphoria later. This suggests a constant back, and fourth, playing out in real time for these girls. The unexpected part is rumination. While feeling dysphoric predicted rumination, rumination itself didn't seem to predict future increases in either dysphoria or peer victimization. In this study, this really challenges some of the past thinking where rumination was seen as a primary driver. Here, it looks more like a reaction. Why is this important beyond just understanding teenage girls' feelings? It gives us a clearer picture of how these issues develop and maintain themselves. If increased dysphoria can lead to being targeted and to rumination, then perhaps interventions aimed at improving mood or teaching better coping strategies for distress could be a really effective first step. And because peer victimization also feeds into dysphoria, creating safer environments and teaching girls how to deal with and prevent victimization are also crucial. This suggests that a multi-level approach is needed, looking at individual feelings, social interactions, and the broader environment. Now, like all research, this study has its strengths and its limitations. A big strength is the use of that fancy random intercept cross-legged panel model, which allowed them to look at changes within individuals over time. Not just group averages, having 5 waves of data over 3 years is also quite robust. However, the sample was mostly white girls from one region of the US. So we need to be careful about saying these results apply to everyone. Also, they specifically excluded girls with a history of depression, which is great for studying first onset, but means these findings might look different in girls who have already experienced significant mental health challenges for a while. Self-report measures, while useful, can also have biases. And finally, the time between their assessments was several months, so it is possible that shorter. Daily or weekly fluctuations in rumination might play a stronger role that this study couldn't capture. So to wrap up, this study gives us some really valuable insights. It confirms that there is a strong link between feeling down, rumination, and peer victimization in adolescent girls. Crucially, it shows a reciprocal relationship between dysphoria and peer victimization, where each can fuel the other. And it suggests that while rumination is a part of the picture, it might be more of a consequence than a direct cause of future problems at this specific stage of adolescence. This kind of detailed understanding is key to developing more effective ways to help young people navigate these challenging experiences, aiming for interventions that address mood, social interactions, and coping all together. That is all for this episode of RUBIN'S Mind Lab. What do you think about these findings? Does this resonate with your experiences or observations? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this breakdown helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more insights into the fascinating world of psychology. We'll see you next time.